Hello everyone and welcome along to your Sunday night edition of the TII podcast. Apologies, we are a few minutes late, just a couple of technical issues delaying us slightly, but we are here and we're here to talk all things Rangers. Tonight I'm joined by a stellar cast of contributors. We've got Tommy McIntyre and Ross Chalmers with us tonight. Tommy, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Yes, and mea culpa, I'll hold my hands up. It was my technical issues. Craig's being very, very kind there. I held us all up.
Yes, he did, and I will say that loud. Ross, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm not bad, Craig. I didn't have to watch Rangers play football today, so I'm feeling a lot better actually, because that was murder yesterday, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, I think we're all in the same position now. Can't wait to get to the end of this season. So yeah, I'm in a great mood for a Sunday night because yeah, Rangers weren't playing.
100%. I was actually very tempted not to watch the game at all yesterday, but sadly, the pool of Rangers just gets me every single time, and I had to sit through that 90 minutes, as I imagine a lot of us did. So we'll touch a wee bit, very briefly, on yesterday's game. We won't delve too much into that. We'll really focus on during this podcast the challenge that we feel that Kevin Thelwell is facing now that he's in the door. It was obviously announced during our podcast on Wednesday night with Kyle and the guys. So they were able to give some very immediate reaction. We've had a few days now, been able to do a bit more investigation into Kevin Thelwell, his type of thinking, his view on the sporting director role, all of that. So we can have a look at some of what he said from his position, whether it's at Everton or with New York Red Bulls, and kind of try and figure out how that might work at Rangers. We'll also take a look at the latest managerial rumours, which will be the next big appointment at Rangers. Marco Rosa has shot up the rankings with the bookies, and he's now joint favourite with Steven Gerrard, who was touted obviously for is the big favourite this time last week. So we'll talk about all that, and we'll just touch finally on his Rangers Player of the Year awards tonight. We had discussion beforehand as to whether anyone deserved any awards whatsoever, but we will have a look at who our men's player of the year and who our young player of the year is for this year. So if you have any thoughts on that, please do drop them into the comments and we'll bring them up at the end as well. But yesterday, Rangers drawn 2 each at St Mirren Park. Is it still called St Mirren Park? I've always track of sponsors of stadiums and all that kind of stuff these days. But Barry Ferguson had said on Friday that he challenged the players to win 15 points from 5 games. 1 game in, and we've already dropped 2 points. Ross, can I get your reaction to what you saw yesterday?
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised they dropped points in the first game, to be honest with you. I think as soon as I heard that from Barry Ferguson during the week, I thought they're never going to live up to that. Again, it wouldn't surprise me next week if they go into that game at Ibrox against Celtic and they played really well and they win the game. It wouldn't shock me. But unfortunately, I knew they wouldn't get the 5 wins out of 5 towards the end of the season. To be honest with you, it doesn't really mean anything anyway, does it? Let's just say as it is. You know, I'm all for setting kind of mini targets and things, but this squad have checked out a long time ago. I think you've seen that again yesterday, especially the first half. I thought second half they maybe showed a little bit more, but the bar was low. I just thought that first half again, there's just no spark in this Rangers team at all. Barry Ferguson's came in and the data doesn't help him here with his argument to get the job full time. I mean, we have went further back under Barry Ferguson, and I'm not going to be too critical of Barry Ferguson in this. Look, he's coming in and he's trying to help out and he's trying to get us, to a good level towards the end of the season, but we're not seeing it. We're not seeing it. These players are not delivering. They clearly haven't really bought into it. Barry Ferguson and his staff are trying to do. Again, I can't see anything in this Rangers squad going forward that gives me confidence. Excuse me. And I think we'll come on to it later on the podcast. I think we say this every summer now. We've got a massive rebuild. Massive. And unfortunately, you can't remove all of those players in a single summer, right? It's going to take time. But there's just so many of them across the board that I wouldn't have, not even within the squad anymore. I wouldn't have them at the club. Do you know what I mean? It's that far gone now. So, yeah, really disappointing. Again, something that Barry Ferguson said yesterday after the game, that teams don't fear playing Rangers anymore. It's so true. I mean, how many games have we watched this season where, and seasons gone past, you would maybe expect these teams to come, make it difficult for Rangers, sit 10 men behind the ball, ask a lot of questions, and Rangers would struggle to break them down, that kind of low block. That is not what is happening this season. Said this a couple of weeks ago in the Gantry, Craig, when we watched that Hibs game. teams are coming and they're playing. Like they're not sitting in. They're looking at Rangers and thinking we can take 3 points here. We're not talking about scraping a draw, getting something in the game. We can take 3 points. We're so easy to play against. If you are organised, which a lot of the teams in the SPFL are, they're really organised under these managers. You will get a result against Rangers. Simple as that. And it's it's a shocking place to be, especially like we've said before. There are good individuals in this squad. There is definitely talent there, but they are not showing it enough. They don't do it consistently enough, and domestically, there's no other way of putting it for me. They've chucked it. They're not interested. And I'm thoroughly looking forward to this summer so we can just put this season behind us now.
Yeah, Tommy, Barry Ferguson and the managerial team came in as just interim. So it was clear from the start from the club it was just for that 3-month period. I think everyone was like, well, at least they might help change the mentality of this squad, or they might try and instill a few. It's effectively a trial for the putting someone in charge that gets it argument, isn't it? Really, that's what it was, and it's. I don't think there's any other way to describe it than it's failed, and it continues to fail dramatically game by game. I don't think Ross had said the data doesn't help Barry Ferguson with his case to become permanent manager. I don't think Barry Ferguson ever probably had a chance of becoming permanent manager, but it's just a case of getting through these last 4 games, isn't it? And it's waving goodbye to hopefully vast swathes of this squad.
Yeah, pretty spot on. And I'm with you. Barry Ferguson was never a realistic candidate for the manager's job post takeover, in my opinion. But it's not about the manager at this moment in time, or the interim nature of it. It's how we reshape that squad, because they are just consistent failures. That's it, right? And I'm with you, I'm with Ross, I'm with everybody else listening and watching. I'm sick to death of them. I just want to get these 4 games out the way, get to the summer, and then see the hopefully mass sweeping changes occur within our squad, because they are diabolical to watch. They hide consistently. They've let us down consistently. And then they just trot out the same old lines. Just get them on the boat, get them on the bus, get them in a car, stuff them in the back of a transit, whatever it is, and get them out the club. That's it.
Yeah, hopefully we're not stuffing people in the back of transits, to be fair.
It's an executive transit, more of a roomy transit with nice seats and stuff like that is maybe what I mean. Listen, as long as it doesn't damage the resale value of the player, I'm quite comfortable.
Yeah, fair. I think we'll leave yesterday's game at that. It's a non-event, and we'll just. I think the rest of the games for this season will be a non-event, because we are very much looking forward to a summer where we hope there'll be huge transitions. And I guess the first stepping stone in that transition was made during the week with the appointment of Kevin Thelwell as the sporting director. He's leaving Everton Football Club, where he has been for the past few years. He was previously at New York Red Bulls as well. So a really good, in my opinion, a very good pedigree of someone to come in. People will look at Everton and say, well, Everton aren't tearing up any trees in the English Premier League. I watched an interview with Kevin Thelwell. I know a lot of Rangers fans will have as well, on the Training Ground Guru podcast. And he kind of spoke about the reasons behind that at Everton and the big challenges he faced around the profit and sustainability rules, the fact they had to reshape the squad, the fact that Everton had spent so much money in the seasons prior to him coming in, that it was a real all hands to the deck job to try and get that running. So, but I'm keen to just talk about how big a challenge Kevin Thelwell is faced with as he comes in to Rangers. It's a very overarching top line question, and we'll delve into the detail of that. But Ross, where are you with how big that challenge is that he's got in his hands?
Yeah, I think with my first answer in this podcast tonight, Craig, you probably know what my answer on this one's going to be. Huge. I think not just on the pitch. I think Rangers have got a lot to sort off the pitch as well. I think the structure at the club has been poor for a long time now. We have needed someone with Kevin Thelwell's experience to be in around it for a good couple of years, and we haven't made that appointment. I think when we lost Ross Wilson, I remember at the time feeling like that was a big hole that had to be filled. And unfortunately, the club decided that we didn't need that type of role anymore, and we would, allow Michael Beale the the ability to run recruitment, and then we would put others within the club into slightly different roles that maybe covered some of the sporting director responsibilities before he left. So that was disappointing in itself. I think that decision has set us back a good couple of years. I think you need someone in that role in modern day football now. I don't think you get away with it. I understand there's a kind of legacy view in these things, and they look at past Rangers sides of the past and the success they had, and it was really just a kind of figurehead manager you had, but that's not modern day football. You need sporting directors. You need someone in there to understand what is required in terms of the structure of a big club. So in terms of the challenge, it's going to be massive. What I would say, the CV of Kevin Thelwell is exactly the type of CV I would have wanted Rangers to look for this role. I don't think we have time to be bringing someone in to be learning on the job. I don't think we have time to be bringing someone in that's maybe had the sporting director role for a year or two, and that's it. We brought someone in that has had experience at various different clubs at various different levels. He's worked in slightly different roles in all of those teams, and he's had success. You know, I go back to the kind of Wolves appointment there as sporting director. He was involved appointing Nuno in the Championship. They had a really successful run. So he's had experience of being kind of a club at the top of a league with a lot more money than everyone else. Spent it well. Then went to New York Red Bulls. Spoke about in that podcast with the training ground guru all around the kind of idea of a club identity, which I think is something we're lacking as well. I don't think we have that at the moment. I think you bring in different styles of managers. They want different things. You've got to turn over the squad again. That's why we're in this position this summer, aren't we? And then you have Everton as well, where he's went into a difficult situation when it comes to PSR, and he's evaluated that situation really, really well. And he's taken them through a bit of a rough period, and actually Everton look to be on the up again. So I'm encouraged by this appointment. I think the challenge is there, but it's exactly the type of individual I would want in the role right now. I think he really understands it from back to front, what is required. You're already hearing murmurings about certain people he wants to bring in to fulfill certain roles. I think he wants to bring Everton's academy director with him and appoint him in the same role at Rangers. So again, he's got the experience, he's got the connections. This is exactly the type of person I would want in there right now. In terms of, like I said before, the challenge is massive. We'll maybe see when it comes to the summer and the takeover and how much capital's there to maybe go and make some changes. But yeah, it's going to be a big challenge for Kevin Thelwell. But the experience is there, and I think that's what encourages me.
Yeah, Tommy, I think one of the things that came across to me when I've watched some of his interviews and read some of the pieces on him was just his view of what a sporting director is. People have a very different view. It seems to change club by club. It seems quite a varied role in terms of how people view it and where people place the priorities amongst it. The way he described it was he's concerned with the longer term at the club. His role's about the medium to long term, but you absolutely can't ignore the short term with results. Ultimately, he views it as the manager is responsible for the preparation of players, the preparation of the team, the performance on the pitch, and ultimately the results. The sporting director is responsible for all the support functions around the manager to give him the best chance to succeed. He's going to have a hell of a job at Rangers to get those support functions in place, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean that's probably a nice, polite way of putting it. And to your point, and Ross's as well, that's the whole point. I'm with you. Modern football club, you need that. Rangers historically have suffered from this, certainly in the modern period, of expecting the manager to do everything and the board letting the manager do quite a lot. Michael Beale being a great example of that, who was given all of the keys to all of the kingdom, so to speak. And it is just making maybe another good example of how it can work really well is you take a manager and that's identified and there's already a structure in place. Arne Slot, Jurgen Klopp. You know what I mean? All you need to do is find the right manager, comes in and then delivers on what they're trying to achieve too. So he's got a huge job though, because there's a foundation there, but he'll want to upgrade everything round about the support functions and then get it working. I mean, people will also be taking on some of the positives when it comes to Thelwell in terms of some of this work that he'd done at Everton. So you're looking at, I think it's 226 million Everton brought in transfer fees during his tenure or whatever. And I think that turned a profit of 81 million in there somewhere. Now that's not going to happen immediately for us because we're asset light when it comes to the playing squad, to be brutally honest. So the first part of his job is working the internal structure, but also doing his very, very best along with the rest of the club to get players out the door. and that might just encounter a wee bit of short-term pain as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but this is obviously the first move that's clear. You could potentially argue that Fleet Command being sacked was the first move under the guise of the new ownership as such, or at least with taking the new ownership views firmly into consideration. But Ross, how important is it, and what sign does this give us as fans that actually the 49ers enterprises have seen the most important role for them, first of all, is that sporting director role? How encouraging is that for you?
Well, I think that was one of the things that kind of review picked out, wasn't it? Again, there was some links to the 49ers in there that they had used that review company before. I can't remember the name, to be honest with you. But yeah, I always think these links are football are never by coincidence, right? So there's that kind of Red Bull link as well that we're seeing now with and we'll come on to it, I'm sure, the rest of the podcast when it comes to kind of Marco Rosa and things as well. So yeah, I think it's encouraging that the 49ers have looked at things from an outside perspective and they thought we need a good structure in place here. But regardless of whether once we sign the contracts, there needs to be things in place for us coming in. So they've recognised that early. And I think Kevin Thelwell is exactly the type that you would look for. And I would I seen someone say it in the chat there. I can't remember who it was, but I think this is a really good role to come into now for Rangers. I think if you had the same role available last season, maybe plenty would have looked at it and went, don't really want to be anywhere near that. You know, it sounds like there's a lot of kind of financial struggles at the moment, not the same level we've been in the past, but you understand what I mean, right? Struggling to kind of generate value for assets in the squad and things like that. There's not a lot to go around with. But actually, I think that's changed completely now with this new ownership group coming in. I think this is a really exciting role to take up. And I think that's probably the way that Kevin Thelwell's looked at it. I think it's probably clear he's had discussions with the 49ers before he's taken this role. I believe that Patrick Stewart, referenced that at the fan forum there. He couldn't say exactly that they were involved in a lot of these decisions, but he kind of, around about where he said, yeah, look, we're in consulting with them with all these type of decisions. So, yeah, I think it, like I said before in my previous answer, Craig, I'm encouraged by this one. This is exactly the type of individual I would want to come in at this point. It's going to take time. We've seen that with the likes of Ross Wilson and even Mark Allen before that. And it took a lot of time to come in and build things up. But we had a more successful Rangers once they had the time behind them. And we delivered that title. The problem we've had is we've not built on top of that. We should have went from strength to strength at that point, and we haven't.
I think one of the questions I've got about the time, and it comes to, we'll come on to that about the managerial discussion as well, but how much time have we got? How much time can we give a new team, a new manager when we've not won the league for 4 years? Time's marching on. If you get this one wrong, then that's another 2 years, maybe more than that, down the pan straight away. And if you give them more time, then it's probably more seasons than that you're then struggling for. How much time feasibly can we give them?
Gonna have to give them a good couple of years, I think. I don't, regardless of Kevin Thelwell coming in the new ownership group, Rangers aren't going to turn things around in a season. You can get a better Rangers side, a more competitive side, but you're going to have to hope, unfortunately, for Celtic to have a drop-off next season for Rangers to win that league title back straight away. So we're going to have to be honest with ourselves and think this is going to take a couple of years to build something. And that is difficult because you're looking across the city, and obviously they secured the title this weekend. That the fact that we went into another split in the SPFL and the game's been nothing is a shambles. Seriously, top level at the club, I've let the support down. Like, how many times are we going to come at the end of seasons and the game's been nothing? Like that. This is a regular occurrence now. It's just not on. So, to answer your question, I think we have to give the group time. I think you have to give Kevin Thelwell time. He's not going to be able to turn things around instantly. What gives me encouragement is if he gets the time, like he's shown in previous clubs, he will build a foundation for success. And I think that's the best way to look at it. Or I'm hoping that is the case. You can never be guaranteed success, I suppose, at any level of football. But I certainly think he's got the CV to give me that hope. And hopefully we can see success, sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Tommy's Cardigan says, as long as I see progression, I'm on board. Mistakes will be made, but we can't be any worse. I think that's probably the most balanced view we'll find from anyone on this podcast in the comments or on social media. So and it's probably one that I agree with. It's just how big are those mistakes that are made and how quickly can you recover from them. Tommy, one of the comments, and I've lost it now, I'll try and find it, said, spoke about Niels Coppin. It was David Penrose here who says Coppin will be the first to go. Where does this appointment leave Niels Coppin? Where does it leave him in terms of an incumbent that's obviously associated with what's gone on last season, this season, and there's the new ownership are coming in as well. Do you expect Niels Coppin to continue to be a big part of the club and that road forward under Kevin Thelwell?
It's very much. I mean, if I was Niels Coppin, I might have been dusting off the CV, in all honesty, and having a conversation with my agent. But it very much comes down to Thelwell in terms of, does he want Coppin as part of his structure because he's the more senior appointment, and then how do you split that? I don't naturally see a position for Niels Coppin at the level that he would want. You know, he was promoted internally. In comes Thelwell above that. Is Coppin going to be comfortable just playing second fiddle? I don't think he naturally would be the long-term answer in there. You might see that's a very swift announcement come the end of the season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. It'll be interesting to see how all the different positions kind of shake out in terms of who's currently in place versus who the new ownership would like to see, how many of their own people they want to bring in as well that are trusted in those roles and may have had experience in other areas for that. Ross, back to the Kevin Thelwell interview. He kind of spoke about his remit at Everton being around the strategic plan to deliver success to the club, find ways of getting young players into the first team and supporting the manager to achieve the goals set by the board, which I believe at Everton the first season he was there was to get into Europe. He was also tasked with sort of resolving that PSR piece and bringing back financial balance to the club. Not allowed to spend more than you earn, etc., that comes with that kind of thing. How important is, I guess, each part of that to Rangers? Which bits do you think will translate over well and that we need, and which bits do you think maybe might fall by the wayside, and more importance might be placed, for example, on first team success rather than bringing young players into the first team?
Well, I think at Rangers, the first team success is the priority at all times. I don't think the rest of the club in terms of youth academy and things matters until you get first team success. That's just the way of it at Rangers. It's how many times do you see it if Rangers aren't winning games? No one cares about the rest of the club. It's just unfortunate. It's the way it is, you know. So I think Kevin Thelwell will recognise that is the most important aspect of his job, and he'll have to put support structures in place to support any new manager that comes in, which I'm sure we'll come on to. It's hard to actually identify what kind of experience he's had that will be the most important coming into this role, because I think I spoke about this with Kyle maybe a couple of weeks ago in the podcast. We don't really know what the ownership group's goals are going to be, right? We don't really know what type of club they want to build. So he's going to fit into the model that they set, right? So it's very difficult for me to pick out certain aspects and say that'll be the most important, that'll be the most important. I'm all for Rangers developing players, Rangers, identifying players in kind of markets that are untapped, bringing them in, the likes of Hamza Egaman, Mohamed Diamande. I'm all for that. But you've also got to bring immediate success on the park. You don't get to just do the former there. So, yeah, I think we'll have to wait and see and get an understanding. We'll maybe hear from Kevin Thelwell over the summer. I think that would be good for Rangers to do, to sit down with him once he's appointed and get a real understanding of what he wants the club to look like and the kind of model that he's trying to build. And then I think that's something that the fans can buy into. Once you get a wee bit of understanding of that, then it's maybe more likely I can pick things out and go, that kind of experience at Everton will help, or that type of experience at Wolves will help. So I'm just looking forward to having someone in that's, like I said before, got that type of experience. The interview he done with the training ground guru was really, really good, because it gave a really good insight and into why it's so important to have a sporting director now, and to set that kind of club identity and the clear philosophy and how you want your teams to play, regardless whether it's first team, youth academy, everyone's aligned. I don't think we've had that at Rangers for a while. I don't think we've been aligned as a club. I know, like I said, their immediate success in the park is the most important thing, but look at the academy. The academy has not been working for a good few years now.
Yeah.
So again, that's something that has to be looked at, which I think is what he will do. So I think just having that real experience of building a club, understanding where the type of resources are, and he spoke about putting people in different roles that they're best at as well. So yeah, everything there gives me the encouragement that he'll come in, he'll put things in place. Time will tell, obviously.
Yeah, I think that clear identity piece was actually the next point I was going to come on to. He said having a very clear identity is a strong mark of success. He spoke about that no matter which pitch in the training ground, no matter which pitch you were watching a game on, you would, and no matter what colour the team was wearing, you'd be able to tell which one was the Everton one purely by the way they were playing. Tommy, I think Ross is absolutely right. That's not something we've had at Rangers for a long, long time. Potentially, Walter Smith's maybe the last one that had a clear philosophy and way of playing, and even then, it was purely win at all costs, which might well be the way that we want to play, or the way that we want the result to turn out. Sorry, but it's not necessarily something that drives a clear strategy or a clear way of playing, that kind of win at all costs mentality. Do you think we're going to move towards we're going to have to move towards a style in particular that just runs throughout the club and brings us success? We probably have tried to install a few different styles over recent years under recent managers, but none of them have stuck and none of them have given us that success, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think various different appointments have a variation on a theme of that, or we'll get one style and one identity, doesn't matter what pitch you're at. Everybody seems to say that when they come in. Quite frankly, I don't give a monkeys. Right, just go and win stuff. Right, I don't care if it's win by any cost, dark arts, black magic, voodoo, whatever. Just go and win stuff, and that's all that matters, and that's all the barometer of success always is. You know what I mean? People don't tend to focus too much on style when you get trophies in the cabinet. Right? Everybody nitpicks and everything across it. Is it good to be able to have a developable model that means that you're playing nice football over the top of it and all that stuff? Yeah, fantastic, right? But ultimately, Kevin Thelwell, the new board structure, the new people that come in are all focused on and have to be focused on the immediacy of uplifting the men's playing squad and making that, with the new manager, a unit that goes and showcases a new mentality. Definitely let's not walk past that part of your question, because that's the singular biggest failing of this team. Has quality in it and goes and wins silverware, owns silverware, puts the fear back into other teams. Everything else can come after that. And then we can talk about bloody style, right? Just get a mentality based into the club that says, if you're not winning, you're not good enough to be here, you got to go. And that's what's been sadly lacking, not the ability to play nice patterns on various different academy pitches.
Ross, where do you stand on that? I guess mentality versus playing style, identity, all of that, I kind of probably all has to come at once. I get Tommy's kind of mentality piece, especially because of how this season has gone, the last couple of seasons have gone, but this season in particular, and just the massive drop-off there's been pretty much from the start of the season. As soon as we come up against any kind of domestic challenge, not even, it doesn't even be a good challenge, just a challenge of some sort domestically. But where do you stand on the need to get that identity / mentality, and where I guess what's prioritised first if you have to prioritise one?
Yeah, I think I view it slightly differently to Tommy, to be honest with you. I think we need that identity. I think we need that style. I think it needs to go right through the club. The reason why I would say that is because we continue to go from manager to manager, and they all have different approaches to it. And every single time the new manager comes in, they've got a squad of players that they don't necessarily want. And then we have to have a lot of turnover again. And I think if you're bringing in like a Kevin Thelwell who sets that kind of club identity as the sporting director, you're then going to appoint managers that fit that style for the long term, right? So if one departs, you're going to bring in someone else that has the same type of style. And I think that's what brings success in modern day football now. You can obviously change your style of play, and I think managers have to be adaptable, but I think there's probably some core principles that a club will buy into, and I don't think we've had that at all. I totally agree with Tommy in terms of we need to be winning football matches and the mentality has to be there. But I don't think that's been working, right? I don't think it's working, because we will bring in players and we will let them know that Rangers is a massive club and we have to have success here, but we're not having success. So we're not doing something right. There's something not right at the club. So for me, I think it comes down to the structure again. I would like to see Rangers go back to, well, I suppose they've never went, but they had such a great style of football. But under Steven Gerrard, they had a really good style, right? You could identify what Rangers' style of play was.
I think we could identify this. I could identify the style, but I think we, apart from one season, we struggled massively against the same team against this year.
But Gerrard had a big task to build that squad, and I feel like we're jumping ahead here. I don't mean to just bring this about Gerrard.
Into one, but
yeah. I just what I'm meaning is he had a clear identity to his squad. Him and Michael Beale, they sat down and they said, "This is how we're going to play for the next few seasons. This is it. We're going to build on this." And actually, you've seen immediate success with that when Rangers managed to get into the Europa League. No one expected that first season when he came in. And the reason why we got there was because we were so well set up and well structured, and there was an identity to the team. And we built on that after 2 or 3 years. And that's what all the fans were saying at the time, if you remember. There was that, even though that we weren't having the success under Gerrard you wanted at Rangers, you could see what he was building. You could see it. You could see it every single week that Rangers were improving. They maybe weren't picking up the trophies that they should be, but you could see it. And when that league title came, I think most expected it to come at some point in the next couple of years. It maybe came a year early, right? But I think we expected it to come. I think we need to go back to that. I think we need to have some sort of identifiable style that goes throughout the club, and your sporting director sets that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that Kevin Thelwell always has to be the sporting director or it all falls down. For me, again, you put a structure in place that if Kevin Thelwell departs, somebody else comes in and they fulfill it, right? It's the club that sets the model and the sporting director directs it in a way. That's the way I'm looking at this. For me, I don't think it's enough anymore for it just to be about mentality. It's not working. Rangers have to try and get a manager in, a sporting director in that set an attacking style of football, and that's the principles, and we go from there. I don't think it's working right now. I think we have to change it, and that's the way I would do it. You look at all the big clubs, that's the way they do it. That's the way they do it. Man City's always the one I talk about, and I know that seems ridiculous because they've been the best for the last 5 to 10 years. But that is what they've done. They appointed people in the right roles at the club, and they built a structure, and then eventually they appointed Pep Guardiola, and he built on it again. Now, again, we're nowhere near that type of level, of course not. But I do think it would help to have a club that had a real understanding of what they want to do on the football pitch and off it. And then each manager fits into that model. So, I have a slightly different outlook on that.
Yeah, Tommy, obviously, the more money you have, the quicker you can kind of accelerate the success or the path to success. There's been a couple of comments saying that we need the Champions League money next season to be able to propel us on a much quicker path. Do you agree with that one, or do you think actually no matter if you get that money or not, and I'm always a bit wary about entering the Champions League at the moment just because of our most recent experience in the Champions League, and we know where this squad is just now, but how important is Champions League next season, especially given that we're entering the qualifying a round earlier than we have done in previous seasons? That means that's going to come around even more quickly with less time to bring in transfers and get a squad settled and get a style and everything like that. How vital is that Champions League pot?
It's always vital, and I would always be on the side of the ledger of making sure you get to the Champions League, even if you maybe are developing a squad and you get the odd duffing up, right? I'm not saying you want to go there and get embarrassed or anything like that, but it depends how you want to cut it. Yes, the 49ers Investment Enterprises Group will have deep pockets, but self-generation of funds helps with your FFP and stuff like that as well. It's also the place to be, and probably a large part of why the 49ers are interested in us as well, because from a relatively small spend base, you get a chance of getting into the Champions League. And then it's also player acquisition, because there's a big difference between saying you're in the Europa League and you're in the Champions League if you're going to sign players and everything round about that. So it just makes you a Champions League club, and that is a significantly different thing to being anything else. So I would always say, even though there's a risk involved, particularly massive turnover of a squad, I would like to think, maybe to rephrase your question a little bit, I'll take a slightly different tack on it. I would like to think that the 49ers and the new model of the club will be seeking to purchase Champions League players. And that probably answers the question more than anything else.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, Ross, to see how this plays out this summer. There's obviously the 49ers enterprises come with a huge amount of financial backing. They have, in Scottish football terms, I guess, limitless amounts of spending that they can put towards stuff. They don't strike me as the kind of people who will come in, hash bash, and just spend as much money as they can to try to get to that success and just throw money at it. I believe that there'll be a real strategy behind it. I believe there'll be real thought put behind it, but it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out this summer, won't it?
Yeah, they can't do that anyway. The financial fair play, PSR, whatever you want to call it now, you can't do it. Personally, I don't like it. The way I look at it is if someone wants to buy something and they want to throw their money into it, then they should be able to. I'm not a big fan of PSR. I think it keeps the big clubs, because the big clubs earn the most money, therefore they can spend the most money. So it's very difficult to catch up. So I don't like it at all. I think eventually it'll come out again. There might be some sort of...
Is that an unintended consequence, I guess, of this is going to put you off on a tangent about the PSR rules, but is that an unintended consequence of, I guess, trying to protect some clubs from dodgy owners, people who are just going to strip assets from the club and almost put them into bankruptcy, versus allowing the right people to invest in clubs and take them to another level? I guess with Wrexham, you've seen that partially over the last few years, a way that they have managed to do that. But is that, I guess, an unintended consequences of the PSR rules, that it does keep the big clubs the big clubs?
I think it's doing proper background checks, isn't it? And ensuring that anyone that takes over a club is the right person to do that. Now, I'm sure in the past people have passed those type of checks and assurances and they haven't turned out to be good for clubs. But yeah, ultimately, that's the way I look at it. I don't like it. And I think you see it in the Premier League at the moment. The likes of Newcastle United and Aston Villa, they have the funds to challenge the big clubs in the league, and they can't. They've got to try and sell their best players every single summer to try and catch up. So, yeah, I know we're slightly going off topic, but I think financial fair play rules will stop the 49ers coming in and throwing money at it. Will they have more money to spend than we would have maybe with the current board in place? I think so. And I do expect there to be quite a bit of heavy investment early when they come in, because I think they will be looking at those Champions League qualifiers and thinking we've got a real chance of making it early here. You think of that money, that cash injection right at the start of the takeover. If you're guaranteeing yourself 18 million, it's a lot more to play around with. So I think they will invest early on to try and get us there. But yeah, ultimately they can't come in and throw money around. It's not going to be the case. I wish they could come in and, I don't know, convince Lionel Messi to extend his career by a year over here or something. I wish they could do all these silly things, but yeah, they're not going to, unfortunately, be in a place. But yeah, I think there certainly will be a lot of money behind them. And what gives me encouragement is I know that a lot of people are saying there isn't too much of a link with Leeds and things, but Leeds have obviously made it back to the Premier League again, and it looks like they do have a good kind of recruitment network down there. So that's something I think that Rangers will tap into at times. You're maybe hoping that players that they recognise in terms of their network that maybe aren't ready for the Premier League would come to Rangers for a couple of years and make that step to the Premier League. And again, that helps us. If you're selling players to the Premier League, you're going to be making a lot of money. So yeah. I think it's more about the connections and the networking that 49ers are bringing rather than a kind of open checkbook. Because, yeah, like I said, the financial fair play rules stop that now. So, yeah, if anyone's expecting silly money to be spent this summer, the likes of 15, 20 millions on a single player, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, Tommy, Rangers on tour brings in basically what I was going to say in the back of that is that assuming the 49ers will bring in big commercial heavy hitters, I think to get around it and at least set us up for future success, they will, I imagine, be signing some big commercial deals this summer. Maybe not quite on the level of total numbers of businesses that we saw James Bisgrove firing. I felt like he did new business every day, signing a commercial deal, but definitely financially they will be sort of big heavy hitters just to set us up as well as we can going forward for future spending. Is that how you probably see it partially this summer?
It's definitely the case. I don't think we'll be getting low level James Bisgrove style announcements, so to speak. But yeah, that's it. Not only, for want of a better phrase, heavy hitters in terms of commerciality, although we do have pre-existing commercial deals that we can't just rip up and walk away from partners. But I think the big thing for the 49ers enterprises is the untapped market potential. So, and this goes back to some of the managerial appointment, who's a name, etc. You're looking at growing the American market, growing potentially the South American market, the Asian market, the subcontinent market, where, yeah, we have some input and some impact, but commercially Rangers could be achieving much, much bigger income from all of those markets. And we've tried various different things over the years, agreement with the Stars and India and stuff like that as well. So I would expect that part to be pushed forward as well. The point about the 49ers is it's not just an investment and they're walking away here. It's a takeover, which means they're in it for the very long term, because it's not as if these people are cowboys that don't do their due diligence. It's been on for a long time. And so they'll have their own significant plans behind this and how the club moves forward and marches up the income ranking, so to speak. And that's the good thing, that it's not just a handoff of money and saying, right, we won't be there. They'll put their own people on the board. They'll look at how we grow the name and we grow the income that comes in. Some of that will inevitably mean a little bit of front-end spending, because you don't want to be trying to sell something that's not winning things. And again, that comes back to although Ross is absolutely right. I mean, I don't expect 15, 20, 25 million on single players. It's not going to be like that. But they have one clear identifiable goal right out the gate, which is dominate your domestic market, right? Which is win your league. And everything else then comes post that.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. AG saying 100% they should go all out with it. Sponsors for substitution announcements and everything. I'm not sure how that would go down at Ibrox, but yes, absolutely. I imagine there'll be a lot of stuff sponsored that may not have been sponsored beforehand.
I seen it there in the comments there, Craig. Stadium, training ground, all these things will be up for the naming rights, as they should be.
Yeah,
they should be. It's a way to generate money. I don't know about anyone else listening to this. I'll still call it Ibrox. It'll be Ibrox to me forever. It doesn't matter if you stick a company name on it. It doesn't matter if that's going to generate 5 to 10 million for the club, which then allows the club to get better on the park. Sell the naming rights. It's fine.
It should be a no-brainer. Yeah, it should be a no-brainer. Give me the check, and as you say, we'll still call it whatever we want.
Exactly. I was speaking about this the other day. You look at the likes of the Premier League, and you've got Arsenal with the Emirates and Man City with the Etihad and things like that. I think when they're picking up trophies down there, they're going, it doesn't feel the same because it's called the Etihad. Do you know what I mean? I don't care. It doesn't matter. We'll still all call it Ibrox. That's the way it is. So, yeah, all of these things should be up. In terms of generating more money for the club, yeah, we should be doing all we can to build a successful Rangers, and I think that should be part of it.
100%. We want to build it. We all of us want to see a successful Rangers on the park. And one of the next key appointments will be the manager that we are going to appoint. I hope you see you both smiling. I hope you like that segue into.
That was delightful, by the way. That's it. I was enjoying that. Yeah.
So yes, last week we spoke heavily around. I think last week it was, if I remember rightly, it was Steven Gerrard and Jose Mourinho were the two leading candidates. Jose Mourinho was a bit of a long shot that just obviously came off the back of the Fenerbahce stuff. One that has been spoken about a lot, though, particularly since Kevin Thelwell came in, is Marco Rosa. There seems to be a lot of noise, a lot of discussion around him on social media since the middle of the week, really, and we've seen that reflected in betting markets as well, where Marco Rosa is now joint favourite alongside Steven Gerrard. A lot of people have been talking as though Steven Gerrard is the nailed on 100%, no one else has a chance candidate. We can discuss the merits. I think every podcast we seem to be discussing the merits of Steven Gerrard, yes or no, at this moment in time. But Ross, you suggested two names to me. I think we were sitting in the press room at Ibrox just after Philippe Clement got sacked, and you suggested two names to me. Marco Rosa was one of them, and Jesse Marsch was the other one that you mentioned at that time. But I think with Kevin Thelwell and his New York Red Bulls links, it makes the Marco Rosa one even more interesting. Obviously, Marco Rosa was at Red Bull Salzburg, then went to Borussia Mönchengladbach, Borussia Dortmund, and then on to Red Bull Leipzig as well. What do you make of that link? To me, it seemed a bit pie in the sky, to be honest, a bit out of our reach, but there seems to be a bit of momentum getting behind it now.
Yeah, I'm glad you've backed me up there. That I actually did suggest this one a couple of months ago. Thank you. If you say that yourself, it never sounds as good, does it? If you're like, I said this a few months ago. Yeah, actually at the time I'd seen that was it Leipzig? Leipzig had sacked him. And I just thought that was the type of appointment I could see Rangers going for. His experience is something, again, I think that would suit us. Won a few titles in the Austrian league. I think he won a league and a cup there. So he's got good experience with Red Bull Salzburg. I think he then went to Mönchengladbach and he had a really successful time. And then he went to Dortmund, not so good. I believe he was the manager when we actually beat them. I think that's right. Yeah. So, and then he's moved to Leipzig. And I think it started quite well at Leipzig, but it ended poorly this season. So, okay, he's had a bit of an up and down. But I think what Marco Rose brings, and I think a lot of the support would look at and say he brings a really, really attacking style of football, a high intensity style of football, which I think is what we require at this stage to try and get back to dominating domestically again. I think you need that style. I understand the style we have has worked in European competition. But I think if we're all being honest now, I think we want domestic success again. We've had Europe. It's been fantastic. Really great experiences the last couple of years, but Rangers have to get back to picking up shiny things, right? Simple as that. So I think you need a style that can do that. The thing I find really interesting about all this is, the Red Bull links. So Kevin Thelwell's worked with the New York Red Bulls. Marco Rose has been around the Red Bull. He's one of those kind of Red Bull coaches, which is why I referenced Jesse Marsh as well, because that's his background. He's out of the Red Bull Academy. So things kind of line up there. I'm not saying it's a nailed on that Marco Rose will be the Rangers manager, but I can understand why the links are there. I think it would be a good move for him at this stage of his career as well, because he's been in Germany for a while, Austria as well. It's not really worked out for him at the end. Could this be the type of move that he comes to where he works for a club and, one of the two big clubs in the league and the potential to go and win a lot of trophies? It might suit him. But I think overall, that type of appointment would suit with what Kevin Thelwell was probably planning to do. Doesn't mean that it's a nailed on certainty, and I'm sure we'll discuss Gerrard in there because, my feelings are it probably will be Steven Gerrard. I've just got a feeling. But Marco Rose himself, I think would be a really good appointment. I really do, and I think it's a caliber of manager I want Rangers to be looking at in terms of it's not just the success he's had. How has he done it? How has he approached it? And I think the style of football would suit us perfectly in terms of domestic. So, I'm encouraged by that one. Craig, doesn't necessarily mean there'll be an appointment there, but that type of caliber of manager, I think that's encouraging.
Yeah, Tommy, what do you make of the this? We'll call it a rumour. What do you make of this suggestion that Marco Rose could be in the frame as being next Rangers manager?
Yeah, well, he's a good manager. I mean, not walking past as well. I think Gretar Steinsson has links to the Red Bull as well. I think he's worked with them. There's a lot of crossover there. But I'm not going to duplicate what Ross has said there. He's had a bit of an up and down recently, so he's a candidate that's maybe a place where we can get him, and also he wants to prove that he's still that good manager and come back into where he should have been. He was very positive about Ibrox and the fans and all that when he came here with Dortmund too. But a serious candidate, and I think the important thing, again, to Rossi's point, is these are the caliber of candidates that we should be having conversations about. There's a big transformation going on at Rangers. There is big plans, and so you want somebody who's going to be there for the long term. As with any managerial appointment, there's risk, right? But if we're having conversations of people of the caliber of Marco Rosa and your Steven Gerrards or anybody else who might be in there, because there's a number of candidates that have been shortlisted, obviously, that's a really good thing. And then it's about shopping in that market. And again, if I go back to my earlier point about purchasing some Champions League players as you also purchase developable players, that's the difference and maybe the mentality here. Nothing against Philippe Clement, but we were shopping in a different section of the supermarket, so to speak. Now we can shop in the wee bit more kind of expensive aisles, and that hopefully brings with it a little bit less risk and allows us to access the players and the type of style, back to the style, etc., that we want to see. He's definitely an attacking midfielder, plays that 4-4-2, likes a diamond. He's on record as saying that significantly as well. Likes to play with two up front whenever he can. So, definitely somebody I would not be livid about if he got the job.
Ross, when you look at the two leading candidates at the moment, in Marco Rose and Steven Gerrard, very different types of managers, very different ways of playing, very different levels of experience as well. Steven Gerrard having obviously been at Rangers, which to me, a lot of people are viewing that as a positive. I'm probably more erring on the side of that being a negative in a lot of ways. But how do you view the fact that actually the two leading candidates at the moment, and I will emphasise at the moment, the two leading candidates are so different?
Well, yeah, I think it's interesting. The type of appointment you get, you'll then have an understanding of what Rangers are trying to do going forward in terms of identity and philosophy and these type of buzzwords you hear all the time, right? So if you go for a Macarosa, you know the style of football that Kevin Thelwell wants the club to play. If you go for a Steven Gerrard, you understand what that. I think that's the way I'm looking at it. We don't know yet. We don't know what the club philosophy is going to be. We don't know the style. They are very different. And I think maybe the next time Rangers are looking for a manager under the sporting director, the type of the managers and the bookies will maybe all be quite similar, right? I think this is just at that point where you don't really know the type of appointment that Rangers are going to make. As for Steven Gerrard himself, it's a tough one for me. I'm probably 50-50 on it. I'm probably fueled a lot with kind of Rangers nostalgia here because I loved him when he was at the club. I just thought he represented exactly what we wanted Rangers to be. And a big part of what Steven Gerrard done when he first came in alongside the likes of Mark Allen and Ross Wilson, that he recognised that the standards were not at the level they should be. And when it came to the kind of infrastructure of the club, he helped put a lot of that in place. And you've heard the likes of Connor Goldson and Bora Barisic speak about this when they've left the club, and they said that something just changed when Gerrard left, that those standards were not upheld to the same level they were before. Again, that worries me because a manager leaving shouldn't take everything with him. And again, that comes back to a sporting director model, which is something we're going for, which is good. But I do think sometimes, I've seen this over the last couple of days, and it's a bit of a rant, so I'll apologise for this, but I've seen this kind of thing on social media with Steven Gerrard where a lot of people are trying to kind of diminish what he achieved at Rangers. Now, of course, there's an argument to say that did he win as many trophies as he should have? Okay, he probably didn't. You got to remember what he inherited when he first came in. You know, that wasn't a top-level Rangers team. That was a Rangers team that had been battered the previous season. Was it 5-0 by Celtic at Ibrox, I think? Right, so you're taking over a club that's absolutely nowhere near it. And he came in, they rebuilt that squad after the season, and they done really well in Europe and things like that. And again, kicked on the next couple of years. So I think Gerrard had a successful spell at Rangers. I understand the way he left, and a lot of people were upset about that. I was upset about that as well because I didn't want him to leave. I understood the opportunity and offer. You've then heard things in the past about, you know, maybe not the board weren't aligned with him and things like that. He done that famous interview on Sky where he said, you know, you fix the roof when the sun's shining and all these things. I think you can have both opinions. I think you can say Steven Gerrard was a really successful Rangers manager, but you don't want him to be the next one. That's fine. I don't really understand this thing.
I think that's where I land. I think that's like I see and I appreciate where he got us to when he was here, but I think I'm always wary about managers coming back for a second time round, especially when they've got to go through a big rebuild and they're not they're not taking on a winning machine and then it's easy as anything. It's a really tough challenge that's going to come their way, and I that's where I am. I think.
Yeah, and I think that's fair, right? And I think maybe the encouraging thing, because you know Rangers are going to have to go through a rebuild this summer. That's what Steven Gerrard was tasked with when he first came in, and he did do that successfully. I know it took time, but he did. He built a Rangers squad that we were all in love with, really. That team that won the league, we loved every single one of those players. And then the next season, he went Europa League final and things like that. He built that squad. So did Ross Wilson. So they built that. So yeah, that's the thing that I get a wee bit confused about. It's fine to say that you don't want him as your manager, but I don't really understand this diminishing of what he's done. I don't get it. And especially from a lot of the support, just saying, okay, wasn't he good enough? He only won 1 trophy in 9. There's context around that, right? You know, the first couple of years, he wasn't expected to do anything. So yeah, that's a bit of a rant from me, Craig. In terms of the appointment itself, you can probably tell I'm on the fence with it. Honestly, 50-50. Like I said this earlier in a group chat, I think if it gets close to an announcement and you start to feel that Gerrard's coming back and there's some rumours, my nostalgia will probably go into overdrive and I'll be all over it, right? Just because of what he brought the previous time. But yeah, I'm 50-50 the now. I don't think it's a certainty. Or it shouldn't be a certainty that he gets the position, but I do think he will be in the running for it. I've got that feeling.
Tommy, AG has asked an interesting question here. We're just on the back of some of the comments about Gerrard saying, was that Rangers team he took over worse than the one that we have just now? I would argue this team has more individuals that could be part of a successful Rangers team as long as they have the rest of the team coming with them. I don't think the team that Gerrard took over in the first place had that. But what's your view?
No, I think that's a fair take. Just whilst we're talking about nostalgia and stuff like that, nice to see XTII on friend of the podcast, Reese, in the comments. A pleasure, Reese. No, I think you're spot on. I think there's developable parts of this playing squad. Some of the younger players, Igamani or Askin, etc. Diomande. I'm with Ross and yourself on that kind of revisionist take of Steven Gerrard's achievements. I think it's overtly negative for no reason. There was a hell of a lot of context to overhaul a successful Celtic side, to build into a team, and he was given that time, and then ultimately delivered the one that mattered. That one big trophy, and it is very, very difficult to win a league. We know this, and so yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with Steven Gerrard coming back at all, and I think that's a strong rumour, so to speak. But yeah, I think he did have a very difficult job on his hands. I think the ripping up of this playing squad and being able to keep parts of it with the right structure in place would probably really, really be attractive to come back. And we've seen, even in recent context in this city as well, managers coming back and being able to deliver on what they want. We've seen that. So yeah, I think it's a strong rumour with substance to it. And I think he would be a successful appointment if he came back.
Yeah,
Craig, the only thing I'll say on that, right? Look at what Steven Gerrard done with Alfredo Morelos. Can you imagine what he can do with Hamza Egerman? That's just that, right? That's what we need to hold on to. Could you imagine?
Is he going to be here long enough for him to?
He'll be here.
The key point there is develop him and then sell him at the right time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Point. And I think that, again, that comes back to that is definitely something Steven Gerrard struggled with, right? He wanted to keep hold of his players. He didn't want to let them go, and that held us back. So that is definitely something you can say to Gerrard, that he didn't understand his role with the club, right? And he wanted success immediately. And there was probably a little bit of Steven Gerrard where he was always looking at Rangers as, this is my time to build my CV to get that Liverpool job. That I think we all understand that. That's what Steven Gerrard was trying to do. I don't think that's ever going to happen for him now. So I think you would get a very different Steven Gerrard. I don't think he would ever be able to replicate what he had at Rangers anywhere else. And at the same time, if you are appointing the likes of Steven Gerrard, you can have faith and confidence that he is buying into what the club are now, right? He has to buy into what this new ownership group wants. He has to buy into Kevin Thelwell and the structure he puts in place. It's not just, Stephen, can you come back up the road and we'll give you loads of money and you do whatever you want? That's not going to work. So, again, built lots of experience away from Rangers, most of that negative. Does that help him coming back? I'm not sure. All these things are up in the air. But yeah, he'll make Hamza Egerman a superstar, I'm telling you.
We need someone to find a way to do that. So I hopefully if it's Steven Gerrard, it's Steven Gerrard. If it's not, it's not. I believe it is Player of the Year awards tonight, but I have not seen a single tweet from Rangers, so maybe potentially not. But we'll play this game anyway. So end of this, as we've reached towards the end of the season, it's the time when individual awards are handed out as well as team awards. We're going to ask Tommy and Ross for their men's player of the year and their men's young player of the year. They can also throw in a goal of the season if they want to as well. I find that really hard to think of options actually outside of Hamza Egerman's at Parkhead. But we can talk about that as well. But I'll come to you first of all, Tommy, for men's player of the year. Where does that sit with you?
I mean, it's come on, all right. But if somebody puts a gun to my head and forces me to choose one of these players who have consistently let us down across the season as a group of failures, then I'm going to give it to Hamza Egermani, just purely because he's got something about him and he can get you excited, and he scored an absolute screamer that made me happy for a short time. So Aye, there you go. That's probably it. I mean, this is end of the PR. I hate them and stuff. But aye, I'm going to give it to him. There you go.
Yeah, for me, Ross. Sorry, I'm choking there. I think it was
It's hard to get the words out when it's connected with Player of the Year awards for this
sticking in my throat. I think it's between Czerny and Raskin. For me, I don't think Egeman did enough over the longer period of time. I'm probably going to side with Nico Raskin just because I think this season, for large parts, not the whole season, but the large parts of the season, he started to become the player that I thought we were going to get. And I think he was a standout. Who is it for you?
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I won't spend a lot of time on this because I'm not in the mood to give these players a lot of praise. Nicholas Raskin would be the choice for me. I think he's came on this season and really shown the player that we thought that we were getting. And what I would say, and this sounds ruthless, now is the time to sell him. Sell him this summer. If the interest is there, that we all seem to be hearing, and he's had those appearances now internationally for Belgium, I think he'll look at that and say, how do I get in that squad consistently? It's not playing in the SPFL. It's playing in the top 5 league. So take advantage of that, Rangers. Sell him. Get 15 million. Then you've got more to play with in the summer with the owners coming in. So that's the first thing I would say. So yeah, he gets Player of the Year, but he's out in the summer. And Young Player of the Year, I think Egeman's an obvious one.
I think Hamza gets it for me, yeah.
Yeah, Hamza Egeman gets it. I don't think we've signed a player with this ability for a long time. Someone that gets you off your seat. I think the last one was probably Ryan Kent, where you look at him and you go, wow, you're a top player. Didn't do it enough towards the end, but definitely got you off your seat. And goal of the season, it's got to be Egeman at Parkhead. Unfortunate, again, I mean, you can go back to last season with that free kick from James Tavernier at Parkhead. What a goal. But again, his goals don't mean anything in the context of it, and that's the problem. This is a problem. We don't want moments. Moments doesn't get you success.
Yeah.
So it's such a shame that you're talking about these great goals and they don't actually mean anything in the context of the season. But I'll give him that because it's his first season really of top level football. And to come into that type of environment and hit that winner at Parkhead, he deserves a lot of credit. So yeah, let's hope he gets that number 9 jersey next season and we build on that.
That's fair. Tommy, final word for you on it, Young Player of the Year.
Do you know what? I like consistency. Egemani. There you go. Right, done. That's all you're getting at me at this point.
Yeah, I think there's never going to be a long discussion, that one, was it? I don't think it was. I'm surprised that they're still having one. To be honest, probably still some commercial money tied up on that one that they need to get over the line. So
I can't imagine that's a raucous night, you know what I mean? But yeah, got to make the sponsors happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, well, we just passed the hour mark, so I think we'll round it off there. It was a really good chat, guys, so thank you very much for that. Thank you very much to everyone in the comments as well. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please do drop a like. Please do subscribe to the TII YouTube channel. I think we're around 15 people short of 9,000 subscribers, so please do subscribe to the channel. Make sure you don't miss out on any content, as 9,000 would be a huge milestone for us to pass, so please do help us on the way if you can. But Kyle and the guys will be back on Wednesday night. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Until next time, goodbye.